Well, it's 9:03. We can go ahead and get started. Okay. Okay. So I know we had talked, or you guys actually without me had talked about trying to figure out, some direction for this group for the rest of the year. The last time we focused on the comp plan, spent our meeting talking about that. Just to give you a little follow-up, some of our project teams and committees have had a second look at their goals and given me further feedback, and I'm expecting more from 3 different groups this week. Actually only 2. The Ag Committee has already given me their feedback, but I think the ECB may have further feedback. I'm not sure. And then the History team, and then potentially the Planning and Public Works Committee, if they are going to have any other feedback. They meet Friday. So I think that's everybody, as far as like the other boards and committees that had a goal that was specifically pertaining to them. So after that, it should be in a pretty good position as a final draft. And, without any other hiccups, I think our plan is that there will be a resolution that the town board can consider to set a public hearing. So it's looking pretty good. All the little, loose ends and page numbers and all that kind of stuff is done. So, and I know, we had a good long conversation about it last time. So yeah, I mean, I'm feeling good about it. I've been talking with Eric. He sent me a couple things. He fixed a map for us yesterday. So.
Oh, good.
Oh,
So it's looking good.
Hey, Sarah, if I just kind of take a step back for a second. So you mentioned that meeting that we had, actually, I have my notes here in front of me. That meeting that we had on April the 6th, I think, was when we were talking about the calendar and some of the topics and stuff. So just as a refresher, what we talked about for our 21 goals for the CIC for the rest of this year is obviously the comp plan that Sarah was just talking about and getting that adopted by the board, and then would work on implementation after it gets adopted, obviously, and we'll start to identify specific goals for that. So, but for 21, comp plan adoption, affordable housing, form-based codes is what I have, the signage, and the conservation subdivision. Those are the 5 topics that I think we generally agreed on that we were going to try to get done the rest of this year. So Sarah, let's just talk about timing if we could for a second on kind of each of those. So the comp plan, you're saying that we have pretty much everything. You think that we'll be able to, at this upcoming May town board meeting, set a public hearing on that?
I believe so. If for some reason the groups that are supposed to give me feedback don't, then, then maybe we would have to delay it. But at this point, I'm optimistic.
So that's the end of this week. The end of this week is the due date for resolutions, Friday. So that would be, okay, so then theoretically, let's say it moves forward. So then June, public hearing, possible June adoption. I don't know if the town board's going to need an extra month or not. Gary, do you have any comment relative to the town board members and where you think everybody's at in reference to the comprehensive plan? I haven't really heard a lot of comments from town board members. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I have not either, Doug, heard any very little comments on it, so I don't have any idea where each of them stand.
Okay.
Yeah, and I haven't had any, edit requests or feedback from any of them, and they've been included. So at this point, at least they've seen it, but yeah, I haven't heard anything. I have no idea.
Okay, so then if we set a public hearing in June, hopefully adopt either June or July, just give some wiggle room. So then just thinking ahead to the comprehensive plan, then theoretically, this group, the CIC, maybe even a fall joint meeting with the town board kind of wondering about looking ahead towards implementation and maybe setting some goals around some specific goals for 2022. Does that sound reasonable to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
I would think.
James,
I
yeah.
think so.
Okay. All right. So I just wanted to talk that out with you guys for a second on the comp plan. Sarah, I'll let you go back to, I don't know if you're going to touch on all 5 of the topics or not. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about with the group here on those 5. So
I wouldn't mind touching on each of them, especially since I wasn't there for that meeting when we were talking about scheduling. Help me get my head wrapped around everything.
So let's stick with the comprehensive plan for a second. Does anybody have any comments at all relative to the comprehensive plan, the adoption, the process, anything?
Do we have the photos figured out for the main cover?
The last version you saw, yes, unless someone had any comments about it, I was going to leave it that way.
Okay.
It's
Well,
I switched out the cow picture for the schoolhouse on Westlake Road.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Sarah, I
Yeah.
did connect with Valerie, and she had one of her staff send me photos, but none of them are good enough for the cover.
Okay.
So, but I did find the photo of the Miller farm that I will send to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have a suggestion for a location for that in the plan?
Oh, I thought on the cover.
Okay. Let me show you what the cover looks like.
Okay, real
And then you
quick. I
guys can
forget. Yeah.
Have a
I thought we
quick
agreed to the change.
Gary, nothing is final yet.
look.
Okay,
Okay, this is what it looks like
That
now.
looks fine. I mean, what does everyone else think?
I like it.
Well, then fine.
I like it too. I like the way it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is how Eric had it with the exception of the schoolhouse picture.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Right.
And then none of the other pictures in the plan, excuse me, have been changed. They are all the way Eric had them. There is one blank that I have to fill. I'm working on that. But other than that, I didn't change any other pictures.
Okay.
But I can stop sharing.
Okay.
There we go.
Everybody's been working on this comprehensive plan for so long. I mean, truthfully, it almost feels like it's lost a little bit of energy. So I hope we can push a little bit of energy back into it just because it's drug on for so long. But, you know, how does everybody feel about the plan in general? Are you excited about it? Do you think it's in keeping with what you heard and over the projects over the last, I guess it's 2 years now. COVID certainly added almost a year into the process that we weren't planning, but any thoughts on that?
I might just have a quick comment. Whenever I go through it, I'm also looking at the projects that have been completed and that are on the books. And for me personally, it's been an education to get on there and see the different things in the plan. I was reviewing some of the natural resources yesterday. I mean, it is well put together, and I think it's very easy to understand. It's straight to the point. There's no complications in it. I think it's a great document, and for who's been working on it is to be congratulated, really. I know Sarah, Era, everybody, you know, it's good. That's my opinion.
I would agree that it is a good document. And I think it does would give our residents a really good picture of what in the heck is happening in the town if they haven't been aware of all the stuff that's been going on.
And I echo that, Joyce. I think it is a good document. I think the important thing to remember is the technology and everything is changing so quickly.
Mhm.
It's hard to keep up with things. And one of the things we tried to do when we were working on the plan is try to visualize what the future would be. Well, it turns out some of the future is now. And the fact that it was slowed down for over a year is really too bad. But I think for the most part, it's really well written. I think Eric did a great job on it.
Mhm.
I think the content is good, and I like the action items and the goals that have been set up. I really like that part. Yes.
And it was really well edited. Thank
And
you,
it was
Karen.
really well edited.
I was going to say, Karen, Joyce, and Oksana, thank you, because I know all three of you spent time going through it a lot. So
I remember going through one of the YouTube tapes because I had been away and wanted to check in on the meeting. Doug, you had mentioned about doing a review before the 10 years.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure. Was a time ever picked, 5 years, 3 years? Or?
no, we never, I don't think, identified a specific time, but leaving it flexible. But honest and truly, that's the thing I love about the CIC, the Citizens Implementation Committee, is in really, I think that, it's a little light today. We don't have representatives from all of our boards, but I think that the different boards and groups really do respect the input and the opinion of the CIC. And so if the CIC 5 or 6 years from now says, hey, maybe it's time to go in a different direction or clean this up or something, I think everybody would be open to that. So.
Okay.
I think we have that provision early on in the document, in the executive summary anyway, that talks about COVID and the expectations, or the lack of expectations about what could happen in the next, say, 3 to 5 years, but that the CIC has the ability and responsibility to react to changes as they come. And I think that's an important thing for this board, because we've never really been in that. We've just kind of taken these long-term goals and kind of worked with that. But now we have the responsibility to look at short-term outcomes because of the consequences of COVID and, some other things, just like you say, technology moving along, and that changes things. So we could, in our 2022, or when we talk with the town board, kind of talk about how we will incorporate that review, or what changes need to be made in our normal, ordinary agendas that we do for the year, so that we're not losing that, so that we look at it, so that we just have an opportunity to talk about things on a yearly basis and see if we indeed need to make changes to anything, and how we can implement, the things that need to be changed.
And I think the process we went through previously, where we met down at Ononda and went through all the action items to see which have been completed, which were in progress, which were yet to be completed. I think that's a really good exercise that should be continued on a yearly basis, because it gives us an idea that, yes, we are achieving goals, and some goals that might not seem so important right now could come to the surface next year, and we would address those. I think that meeting is critical for us to keep on top of the changes and the items in the master plan.
Mhm.
Yes.
As I've indicated in the past meetings, that I thought the plan turned out well. I served on both the 2003 and the 2011, as some other people on the CIC did also. And we had all outside consultants in. I think this worked much better, where you had the staff as well as the committees for the input and things like that. They understand the process a lot better, and not only saved the town money, it had better input, I believe. And that's something I think the town should look forward to in the future, is having the same procedure followed when they draft up any future plans. And Doug, did you or Sarah have any of the comp plans sent to the other town board members, so they get a running start on looking at them?
Yes, for the past 5 months, when we are spending time on the CIC talking about comp plan, they were included with all the emails that went out. They were included with the most recent draft, although it changed since yesterday. So now I guess it's today's version. But Yeah, I made sure that they would know about it so they had an opportunity to see it.
Okay, good.
And some of them, besides you, have come to a couple of the CIC meetings this past spring and late winter. And in their other committees, you know, I think almost everybody's had a chance to have a conversation on the board about it.
Tom or Greg, either one of you have any comments? I don't think I heard from either one of you.
I've got nothing to add. I'm okay.
Doug, you know,
So,
we were talking about the town operations section, the one that, you know, there
Yeah.
had been some notes between you and Eric that may have gotten lost, but you had sent me some. I did update that section. So at least you should take a look at it, or I can send out the newer version today. Either way, whatever would be appropriate.
Yeah, I don't know what, unfortunately, I don't know what happened there. Eric and I
Yeah.
had about an hour or 2 hour meeting, I think it was, actually going through and really kind of laid out some things, and then somehow that all got lost. But
Yeah, I think he had handwritten notes, and in his move, they got lost. Because he's talked to me twice about it now. He just can't find it. But Doug, with what you sent, you know, I did
Right.
put those updates back into it.
okay,
And I did want to
So
mention, we were
Sarah,
talking about the plan to update it, and in the town operations goal, one of the action steps says to prepare a new comprehensive plan, but it says between 5 and 10 years, so it's open. So it does leave that flexibility, but it is in there as an action step, so it doesn't get forgotten or, you know, left to be assumed.
so Sarah, after Friday, if you hear from the other committees, then the plan will be totally completed, except for the town board's review.
Yeah, but if it has to change after we, you know, put it in the agenda, I don't know what that means for, that might mean it would have to be pushed out, because the official version that would have gone on the agenda would be whatever it is when we make the agenda.
well,
Okay.
it's a little bit different than a local law, Sarah, but basically, so the town board can obviously make amendments and then
Okay.
adopt right up until the point where they adopt it. But, you know, again, I don't think we've heard from all the town board members on the most recent version. So I don't know if there's going to be additional questions. Maybe there won't.
Okay.
I don't know. So we
Well,
won't know
should
that, I
we-
guess, until we get into the public hearings with the town board.
Okay, does that, I mean, should we wait? Or
No.
should we just take
No.
what we have and?
No, because
go?
really the town board cannot make any decisions that outside of a town board meeting. So it's
Right.
got to be advanced to that level for them to start discussing and having comments. Obviously, they can come to a meeting like this, but even this is an official act, is not an official action of the town
Right.
board. So
No. Okay. So we'll just keep track of, you know, if something else comes in, all the, you know, everything's dated. So, you know, like you know, right now it's dated today because I made changes yesterday and one this morning. So, you know, whatever we get when we make the agenda, it'll be that date, Friday, Monday, whatever it is. For
So
the version
Sarah,
that they see.
would
So
it-
any changes after then, we would be able to track when it happened.
Okay, so should the town board know what the schedule is so that they can review it on their own right now?
They've been included in all these emails. If they're reading emails, then they know. I don't know if they're reading their emails from me, but it's been communicated.
Okay,
That's the best I can do.
all right.
I can share. That's all I can do.
all right, should we move on to the next goal that I have on my list then, if we're done with the comprehensive plan? Is everybody done with comp plan discussion? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Affordable housing. I want to thank everybody for participating in that meeting. I thought it was a great meeting. A lot of interesting comments, a lot of interesting conversations. I want to share a concern with you though. I think there's a lot of energy around the concept of affordable housing, which I think is fantastic. And let's see where that takes us. I think that we talked about, I go back to, I heard three different buckets of things. I heard about regulatory changes that the town may need to consider to promote affordable housing. I heard a lot about programming, which may or may not include fiscal aspects, but programming to enhance current housing stock, or maybe make improvements, or maybe even the types of ways that we go about promoting affordable housing equity. We talked a lot about different programming aspects. And then I still think there's a fiscal piece. The thing that concerns me is there's a couple of different avenues there, and the town board passed a resolution, right, that created the affordable housing project team, but there is no budget for the affordable housing project team. And when you really talk about the level of detail of some of the things that we were getting into, I think that there may be some financial costs to the town of Canandaigua to really explore this. And I strongly believe that this needs to go back to the town board, for the town board to establish a budget for this project team. And that will also tell us whether or not the town board is in support of really moving forward with this or not. Because I'll be honest, I have my doubts and I just don't know. And so this is another one of those topics right now where I need clear direction from the town board. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I'm getting it right now. But we're going to need to go back and take that step, I feel like, because otherwise I'm not sure what to do.
Mhm.
So, Doug, are you envisioning a budget for opportunities for us to have consultants, or you're not suggesting that our budget would now include some kind of program financing or anything like that? You're just taking a look at what the Affordable Committee might need in order to engage in the dialogue and the background information regarding, stuff. Is that what you're talking about? So if we need to hire somebody to come in and guide us in a process, which I think we probably will, because this is a very complex project we're talking about here, especially if we talk about parallel tracks. So that's what you're responding to right now. It's just, are you talking about 15,000, 20,000, something like that as a budget item? Because by the time the Affordable Housing Committee actually gets its head around its hands around anything, we're going to be into the budget development phase for 2022. And it might be better for us to start talking about what our needs are and about how much we would need to hire someone who could guide the process. So that's just an option right there. It delays it a little bit, but yet we'd still be working on a lot of things. Anyway, just throwing that out. The budget process is coming up in a few months.
So Joyce, that's all along the lines of what I'm thinking. So, I mean, we talked about a variety of different things in that team meeting, right? We talked about maybe there's some room for the county to be involved in some of this stuff. We talked about other entities, maybe truthfully, maybe the LDC. I go back to maybe the LDC has a role in this. But there's going to need to be something. I mean, even, Sarah's reached out to Matt Horn on my behalf to try to at least get a range of what he might even think, because I don't have any idea. I mean, the Uptown study was $100,000. I'm not suggesting something like this, and it may need to be spread over multiple years, because I don't think that this work will be completed in one specific year. But when we're talking about bringing in experts, and I heard one board member say wanted to bring in somebody from the federal government, and then another person said something else. I mean, you're talking about so many different things from so many different areas. We need to get laser focused on what it is that we're specifically going to accomplish. Otherwise, we're not going to accomplish anything.
And I agree with you, Doug. My impression of that meeting was it was too scattered. It wasn't focused, and we need help determining what the initial focus should be and how to plan for that. And so I agree with Joyce that perhaps a small budget, you know, $15,000, $20,000, which to me is a lot, but it's small. And when you have a big budget, might help us get some people in here who have been through this process and know how to funnel all the ideas into a logical procedure to take for a town. And I hesitate to just say town because I think this is community wide, and the community is both the town, the city, and the county, in my opinion. I think we need a budget now. Is that possible to have them allocate some funding from one fund to an affordable housing fund? I don't know how that goes.
Yeah, there could always be a budget adjustment. There could be a request. The town board would need to approve it. They could take it from fund balance or whatever else, especially if you're talking like what we're talking about, $10,000, $20,000, you know, whatever that number is to finish at least this year and then allocate something going forward.
Right.
But again, you know, I'm just not sure where everybody's at, and I'm not exactly sure what to ask for either.
That's why I think we need some help. I think finding a municipality that has gone through this and has developed a structure for it, it would be good to have the benefit of one of their people talking to us initially, and then go from there and determine, you know, what steps we need to take. I am sure there has to be experts out there, because we're not the only ones talking about affordable housing, and I mean, the need is nationwide, frankly. So there have to be some people who really have a logical step-by-step process that can apply to a community such as ours.
But don't we already have some expertise with Matt Horn and MRB? I mean, they have it. It seems as though, I don't know if that's the consultant that we're looking for, but is in the first phases here. If Matt were to, if he could, you know, if MRB could, you know, kind of guide this committee, whether, you know, for some fee-based, you know, guidance or whatever, and then we could make a decision about, just to get us started, make a decision about what our needs would be for consultancy in 2022. And that might be a much larger package to really start to explore all these issues and to, you know, get us on track to actually accomplish something pretty darn soon. So I'm just wondering if Matt isn't that connection for us right now, and then we can move forward after we've learned more.
Yeah, Joyce, it's certainly possible. Matt's willing to participate. He's communicated with us, but I think we should also explore all the options, right? Put all the cards on the table and let's see what options we have. Tom, I think you had your hand raised there too. So.
Yeah, the town of Canandaigua's needs in this line are not unique from any other community or Ontario County. Do we know whether there's any other group within the county? I noticed in a newspaper article or advertisement recently, Clifton Springs had advertisement in regard to income qualified. It appeared to be new income qualified housing, and it seemed to be quite reasonable. It was apartments. Somebody else is doing this. We shouldn't be reinventing the wheel. There got to be a lot of people working on it and a lot of programs that we don't know about.
Some of those
we shouldn't be doing it when others are also doing it.
But we had those people at the table. Well, maybe we didn't have them at the table, but they should be. DePaul is doing it. Happiness House is doing it. The Geneva Housing Authority is doing it. So those are, unfortunately, the people that didn't show up for the meeting, but we do have those people right here in our own backyard, so to speak. Happiness House is doing that right now, and so is DePaul, and so is the Veterans, the Liberty Apartments. They're doing it. So this income sensitive, process is, we're doing it already. Look at Creekwood. That's an income sensitive program. So we're doing it right there. So anyway, we are doing.
I'm just saying we shouldn't be reinventing the wheel if there's already people that have plowed this field.
I agree.
Yeah.
And
Or
I'm not
learning
sure,
something that everybody else already knows.
I'm not sure if those are the people to get in here. Because it's a larger concept than the VA providing housing or DePaul providing housing. They all have a population that they deal with, and it's not a general population. And what we're dealing with is a general population. And, we're not focused on taking people in tents and putting them in a motel room. We're focused on providing a housing element that it can benefit all walks of life. So I think we need to look beyond DePaul and the VA and some of those other organizations and actually find a housing expert who is familiar with the steps we need to take to achieve what is going on in my mind anyway.
And they got to be out there somewhere.
They have to be out there because we're not the only ones experiencing this. And, it's throughout this country.
So can I make a comment, Doug? So there are experts in our community for sure. I'm not one, but I know them. And there's a significant amount of detail. I'll use an example on the County Road 10 adjusted income housing project. That was multiple years of work by multiple professionals from DeMarco, from other organizations, the engineering groups and everything else. But the other point I want to make is that we also have an asset in this community that I don't think we utilize completely. And Doug, you have to help me with the last name. I always forget this gentleman's last name. Rick at Habitat for Humanity.
Well, Rick Herman, and then Nash is actually the local director. But
he's been a lifelong friend for a long, long time, over 30 years. And that process is a rigorous process. And I think the biggest thing we're facing now is what is affordable. Look at the construction costs that have gone up 25, 35, 40% this year. How does that ever even become affordable for anybody who has not had income growth? So there's a lot of financial overarching strategies. So I applaud the effort. I'm disappointed in myself that I did not attend that meeting. I had a conflict. But my point is that there's a ton of work to do there. And we do have community experts in it. And they're willing to help. I know they are. The gentleman that ran it for DeMarco is now retired. His name is Bill Dirtle. And he's a well-respected person in that affordable housing sector for sure. And that's what you really need to talk about is that industry of it. And I think the group of the affordable housing team has got to have a deeper understanding so we can even start to ask the right questions. I'm not sure we can ask the right questions yet. So that's my 10 cents.
I agree. We haven't even talked to Geneva Housing Authority. I know that is another income sensitive program that they have, but I think that there are programs in Geneva. I'm thinking of the little solar village that they have there. I don't know all of the particulars about it, but those kinds of housing opportunities that aren't predicated on income, but still have some affordability components to it.
Yep, for sure. Greg, did you have something else you were going to add there?
What?
I thought Greg was getting ready to add something else. I'm sorry. Oksana, did you have something you wanted to add there?
Well, I was just wondering, has anyone, or we probably haven't even spoken to the county or the LDC. I know that the LDC has already set their goals for this year. I'm not sure even if we need a budget yet until maybe next year, because we don't really know enough, to flesh out all of the details, even what is affordable housing. So I would want to talk to the county and the LDC, because this isn't, as we said at the meeting, this isn't just for the town. It's area wide.
It is area wide, Oksana, and certainly, and especially when it comes to the city. I mean, I think that there's a lot of opportunity, as we've said many, many times, for the town and city to work together. I think that there are, if we're talking about town regulations, that specific, I think that, we've already talked about a few town regulations that could be modified to certainly not prohibit affordable housing to the extent that we currently are. For instance, the size of homes, the minimum square footage of homes, and those sorts of things. So some of those things could certainly be addressed by the town. But even Oksana, what you're talking about, Matt Horn certainly is a representative on the LDC. I'm on the LDC. But the LDC has set their goals for the year. They haven't yet set their goals for next year, and affordable housing is not a goal for 2021 for the LDC specifically. It's not as spelled out. It's definitely something that the LDC is interested in, concerned about. It's definitely something that the LDC, I think, would generally, I'm going to just speak kind of conceptually, love to support, I think, when the right opportunity comes along, but it's not identified as a strategic initiative that they're trying to accomplish for this year. Should it be? Maybe, but there needs to be broader conversations. And that's where, some meetings, even a larger joint discussion between the LDC, the town, and the city needs to take place in terms of those types of things. And I don't know if this is a strategic initiative right now of the city or not. So there's a variety of different moving pieces. When you talk about programming, the city already has a program. Whether or not we should expand that program to the town, that's something that could be considered. But without getting into all the devils of the details and everything else, we still need somebody to help steer the ship through all of that, and that really has an understanding of all that. And I don't know that I can ask the current staff to take that on, and I don't know that we have the background, truthfully. There's certainly, yes, there's people in the community. There's people that we've talked to. DeMarco, I just had another conversation with them. They're interested in doing another project in the town of Canandaigua. They've loved working with the town of Canandaigua. But again, we need to, and to your point, Oksana, I don't know that the group has really identified what the problem is. What is the problem that they're trying to solve? That's one of the issues I think that we're still missing. And so maybe it's going to take another meeting or two, because as Karen said, that meeting, everybody was all over the place. And there is a recorded version of that meeting right on YouTube, Sarah, so we can go back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doug, I hear what you say. I do not for a minute believe the LDC or even the Ontario County Economic Development Corp should be leading this effort. They're going to be, their focus is different. And development in their focus is economic development. And economic development is going to be a driving force in the need for affordable housing. So affordable housing, while it falls under that umbrella, it's not one of their goals. Their goals are to ensure that there is a way to provide all the needs that economic development has. So we need someone that's able to focus us on the housing issue and exactly what you say. What is the issue? And, Pathstone and Habitat for Humanity and all these other community organizations, while they have wonderful programs, I don't really believe they have, first of all, they have like I say, they have a different demographic that they're working with. I don't believe their focus is affordable housing. I think that's a large umbrella. And affordable housing can what's affordable for me is certainly not what Greg would say is affordable for him. So And I can tell you, my grandson, what I consider affordable, he thinks is really very wealthy. So, you know, it's hard to figure out where it is we're going to go without someone who has looked at all of these things and focus them. And frankly, I think you're going to find most of the experts on the West Coast and the Southwest area, because they are the people who are having the largest problem with affordable housing. And when I say we have to learn to think outside the box, man, I mean it. If you go online and read about the steps these people are taking to provide housing to people who need housing, it blows your mind. I have to wonder where these people came from, because I certainly have not met any yet in this community. The solar village in Geneva, I've been there. I actually walked around there with my cane and talked to people sitting on their porches and asked them about it. It's not affordable, but it is a concept that we would have never addressed if someone hadn't visualized doing this and gone ahead with it, purchased the property. I imagine there was some fighting with code. I'm not sure, but they went ahead and did something outside the box, and that's what we're going to have to do. But frankly, I don't know what outside the box is for the community of Canandaigua, Ontario County, town, village, city.
Right. Well, that's where it's going to take more in depth and really understanding what the residents want. I mean, I was going back through and looking at comments in the comprehensive plan. There's comments in there that people do not support certain demographics and do not support certain types of housing, and they don't want it in the town of Canandaigua. So it's a big project. It certainly is a big project. You know, and then, you know, even Nash from Habitat Humanity, you know, was talking about the whole equity positioning. That's a big piece of this also, because if you don't have some sort of equity position in this, and maybe that's the role of the LDC, then basically you're helping the first party cash out and turn it over, and then the housing is no longer quote unquote affordable. So, you know, there's got to be another piece to that also. It's you know, it's fairly a large issue. It's you know, going to take some time to work through that. So what does, I mean, the CIC, so I'm going to throw it back to you. That's your project team. What do you want to see that project team accomplish this year?
I want to see that project team develop a focal point and some steps to take to determine how they're going to get from point A to point B. And so, you know, point B might just be having a plan. Certainly we don't have a plan right now. We don't have anything. We have a group of people from all different areas of expertise who have come together. And I'm not sure they're all going to agree on what the focal point should be, but that's why I think, first of all, we need to have some experts. And I would say 3 or 4 meetings of different experts from different elements.
So Karen, what I hear you say is by December 31st, you would like to see that project submit and have to us, to the CIC, a roadmap for basically how they're going to address the issue.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I like that.
Joyce, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that. Yes. And my only other option that I see would be is to have there is no chair for this committee, that we have a consultant. I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I just said, yes, we need one.
Yeah, oh, we need one, yes.
Mhm.
And I think that's what we're lacking here. There is, someone who can listen to all of this and say, okay, fine. Then at our next meeting, this is what we're going to have. This is who we're going to have. This is a plan for us to achieve that informational stuff that we need to have in order to make some other decisions and to get the project going. And I think that is that professional that we're talking about. Someone who knows this housing in and out, and that might be one of our goals also immediately, is to find the right person that is going to lead the committee, because I don't think it's I just don't think it's any of us.
Tom, Sal, Greg, Gary, Oksana, any comments?
I agree with Joyce. It's all over the place, and we need to focus, and a professional will help us.
Right,
Second
I
that.
think that what I would like to see happen, and I agree with what everyone is saying, is I still don't have, in my mind, a clear-cut definition of what affordable housing is in this project. I mean, it takes
Right.
on so many different definitions. Which one are
Well,
we gonna go?
and that's the way it is, I mean,
Yeah.
affordable in and of itself isn't suggesting an income level. It's suggesting I think the percentage we talked about before, that 30%, which is wildly different based on what your income is, so yeah, we need help focusing. We need help figuring out, because there's
Mhm.
going to be so many different ways. There are different ways you can help someone who needs housing or who's struggling,
Mm.
but it depends, on where they are in life. And it's, Karen, what you were talking about, your grandson, and I'm thinking, for my own example, in my own life, I've been at different levels of affordable, and it changes. So that's part of the focus, is who are we trying to help?
And I ended up buying my son a mobile home for $3,500. To him, that is, and it really, it's sad, because to him, that's affordable housing, because he makes $14 an hour, which does not make him a candidate for any equity position, although after a year he'll own it. But you see where I'm going? We need to be able to identify what the problem is in our community, because our community is different than the Rochester metropolitan area, for example. We have very wealthy people here, and we have a few very poor people here, but so I would think the affordable housing market would be on a higher end than it would be in the Rochester metropolitan areas, especially if we want to provide an equity solution.
Let me bring you guys back to logistics, because we've already spent over a half hour on this topic. What I'm hearing you say is a roadmap by the end of the year, probably some sort of professional lead. Does the CIC, again, this is your project team, does the CIC want to request anything from the town board to make that happen? Do you need to request a budget or an amount to get that professional assistance and that to identify that roadmap? If that's what your goal is for this year and really start digging into this, do you need a request to the town board?
I think
we
based
do.
on this being a goal in the comprehensive plan, and that the town board agreed that we should start this affordable housing group, I think for it to be successful, we do really need to request some help.
And the other thing is about this request, are we requesting an RFP? Are we actually now getting down to the fact where we would say, what we need is that consultant, and would we be looking at an RFP and, kind of helping whoever, the town to say, okay, this is how much money we're going to spend on this project for how many months, and that then the RFP would demonstrate the qualities of the consultant that we need.
So our procurement policy, as long as it's less than $20,000, you don't have to do an RFP, but that's something that the CIC could decide. So the CIC could decide to do an RFP, which is absolutely fine. But again, you're not going to be able to do an RFP if you don't have a budget to go along with it. And so
That's what
that's
I'm
where I
saying.
kind
To
of keep
support
going back.
to support our request for a budget, it's because we are going to develop an RFP for a consultant, or we're not going to develop one, but we need a consultant.
I just, and I mean, an RFP might be a good idea, but maybe not yet. And the more RFPs I work on, the more I'm learning that is if your RFP isn't focused and asking for something, you get a huge variety. So are we ready?
No,
Well,
we're not, Sarah. I
I don't
100%
think
agree
so.
with you. That would come down the road. But you need basically what I keep hearing you say is you'd like to have a roadmap. You need professional assistance to help get you. Right now, you're not going to be able to do that because you don't have any money at all. So that's what I'm saying is, does the CIC want to at least request a budget amount up to, not to exceed, whatever, to get you through this year?
And
Yes.
I think we do need to ask for that. And I think we should be, maybe put our heads together and determine what kind of consultants we want. So perhaps from a construction company, from a community similar to ours that actually has worked on something like this. Someone from maybe housing and urban development who knows the elements in all different communities, I would hope. You see where I'm going? We have to explore all of them that covers our area. So
Well, that's why I said an amount not to exceed a certain amount, because
Yeah,
then at
that's
least
right.
you have a budget line and you could, plug into different things. And the other thing is that I keep going back to is that's going to tell you, is there support for moving
Mhm.
forward with this or not?
exactly.
Is the town
exactly.
board going to vote to
Mhm.
actually do a budget amendment for you? If they do, that's a pretty good signal they support continuing to explore. If they don't, that's also a sign.
What about putting in a budget request not to exceed the $20,000? That puts us right at the line for the RFP.
Yeah.
I agree with Sal. I think that would be a good idea, and Doug's right. It would give us an idea of where the town board is, because I have my doubts also.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Well, I
Suggest-
go back to what Tom has said, that, there are other communities that have already done this. So before we hire a consultant, maybe we should reach out to those communities and get their input.
I would set a goal between now and the end of the year of having 4 sessions for this committee with some sort of housing expert. And I agree with Oksana. The first one, perhaps have whoever is in charge of the Geneva Housing Authority, and let's see what they've done. And perhaps have someone from DeMarco and see what ideas they have from the building industry. Perhaps we have someone from a community that has similar building codes to ours and see what types of changes need to be addressed in the building code. And then perhaps have someone on the larger scale who has experience or knowledge of the entire system, hopefully. And they probably would cost the most because they would be from the largest organization. But my goal would be 4 before the end of this year.
I suggest that early on that we get current census information and update the information that's on page 48 of our proposed updated comprehensive plan, because Eric did some groundwork so that we know who our targets are, either for equity ownership or for rental, how many households are in potential need specifically in our community. And so we have some kind of a target to go after using experts or public money, whether it's local, state, federal. I mean, the starting point is to identify the community that we'll be serving.
I think that's a great point, Tom, and it just points out how important that the comprehensive master plan is going to be.
I mean, Eric did some nice research,
Yeah.
and I know there's more somewhere in a file, Sarah, because he and I had conversations about, what's 30% of income? Is that net or gross? And then it's changed by number of people in the family and so on. The issue of affordability and percentage of disposable income and who gets subsidies for their children and so on. It's a tangled web to just sort out who your customers are.
Yeah, he had put some stuff together and it was shared with the CIC, but I think it could have been last year. It may have been back in February when Matt Horn came to talk to the CIC. It may have been from before, but I can look for that, although the data is older now. But to your point about updating the page in the comp plan, there may be new ACS data, American Community Service data, but the decennial census is not, that data is not out yet.
Yeah, I think it was from 17 from recollection.
Yeah, it is, Tom.
You guys keep getting into the details on all this, and we've been 45 minutes talking about, I keep trying to pull you back out. I love your passion about it, but set aside a separate meeting to talk about affordable housing if you want to.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll do a resolution for this town board meeting. The CIC is requesting a budget line for specifically affordable housing, and all the details would be figured out later, but at least that'll give us an idea, right? All right, so I want you to be aware of it. We'll go ahead and do that.
Okay.
Resolution, put that on this agenda. So there's three other things, form-based code, signage, and conservation subdivision. So form-based code, some of you are able to join us yesterday on the call with the ordinance committee for form-based code. So Gary, the plan is that committee meets on May the 19th, right? And then the committee would be, the ordinance committee will be advancing form-based code to the town board for their June meeting for setting a public hearing for July, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So then, whether or not the town board takes action at the July meeting, I mean, we'll wait and see, but at the earliest that it would be adopted would be July, say July, August timeframe. So that's moving forward. Signage, Gary, the signage legislation, I think, is a fairly similar process, right? It's the ordinance committee is also going to discuss that on May the 19th. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you think, based on your conversations with the ordinance committee members, that they're ready to advance that to the town board?
I think so. I've got, there's another member here. Tom, what's your thoughts on it, Tom?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go. I already gave you a couple tweaks.
Yep.
But with the exception of those tweaks, we're ready to go.
All right, so then it's possible then that could also go for the June meeting for setting a public hearing for July. So we're talking about that same July, August for the ordinance or for the signage. And then after that, then we'll have some information, Oksana, to come back to you with the gateway signage. Once we get to that point, and maybe even might have a little more information after this upcoming Maytown board meeting, but realistically, probably by June, July, then we'll have a better idea for the gateway team to be looking at whether or not there's some component to include or not relative to the whole digital signage.
Well, I certainly hope so.
It's been a long time, I know.
Yeah.
But I guess the other thing I would just say on that real quick on the signage piece, the gateway signage, well, since we're talking about signage in general, Oksana, are there other opportunities for that team to look at other entrances to the town of Canandaigua in the meantime, other than those possible digital signage?
Well, Doug, we've only had one meeting, and at that time, I have to tell you, which I think I mentioned before, none of the committee members were anxious to have a digital sign on 332. And we have not discussed anything besides that. And we have a meeting on Wednesday, so next Wednesday. So we will talk about all of this.
Right, but I guess my question is, forget 332, forget 5 and 20, because, or at least over near the big lots, right? Because that's really going to be a town board decision whether or not that any of that happens. But what about the other entrance
Okay.
points to the town of Canandaigua? 5
Right,
and
'cause-
20 west,
Well,
21, those Cheshire, whatever the case, is there something we should be looking at in those areas?
Those were the original
Well-
reasons that the group was created too, you know? Just all the other roads where people enter the town, we do not have a welcome sign. We just have the metal sign that says permits
Right.
required, or maybe our farm-friendly community signs. That's all we've got. So all of those other possibilities are still there waiting to be discussed.
Yeah, we don't have any design. We don't have anything yet. And we
That's
haven't
what you guys
really
can
had
work on.
that much of a discussion. Yes.
Yeah.
So
there's still
Doug,
work to be done.
so
Besides the
Doug,
digital.
are you then saying that the digital sign is strictly up to the town board because of the litigation that has been going on? And the Gateway Signage Committee really doesn't have anything to say about it,
So
except
the gateway
maybe
sign,
giving input as to the design of that digital sign.
so let's back up for a second. So the gateway signage, the whole original, and again, this is another CIC project team. So you can certainly, as CIC, you can change the parameters, but the whole original intent was signage as you enter the town of Canandaigua, so that you know that you're entering the town of Canandaigua, because all of our surrounding municipalities have nice gateway signs as you enter those municipalities, even the town of Bristol down on, what is that, 32, or even 21 in South Bristol, and so forth and so on. And we don't have anything other than those metal signs. So that is the intent of the gateway signage team, and that has not changed. So
Yes.
there's still all of those opportunities to explore. The digital signage piece, whether or not the town board changes the law to allow digital signage, that is up to the town board. And whether or not that actually happens, that's really up to the town board and the current billboards that are there. The 4 billboards that are in the town of Canandaigua currently, they can stay or they could be replaced in some form or fashion. But the law that was passed previously during a different era is not constitutional. So that's where we got into the whole litigation. But again, it doesn't change the intent of the project team. The project team is supposed to be looking at the gateways as you enter. And so if the town board changes the law, and if the company moves forward with some sort of digital signage, then yes, there's absolutely an opportunity for the gateway team to be involved in the concept and the design and those types of things. But you got to get through the 2 ifs first before you know whether or not the gateway team is going to have anything to work on or not.
Okay, that's a clarification that we didn't have before.
Aren't you saying, Doug, that the gateway signs are where you enter to the town, not where the sign is on 332, where you're almost to the city before that sign pops up?
That is correct. You're absolutely correct, Gary. So that's where the gateway signage, and that is a DOT rule that a municipality is allowed to have a gateway sign at the entrance to their municipality. That's why they're called gateway signs. So that's always been the intent behind that gateway project team. Now, if there is some sort of a monument sign down the road that could incorporate some gateway components and a welcoming to the greater Canandaigua community, we'll figure that out when we get to that point. But that should not be holding up the work of the project team in the meantime.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right. So the last one, just real quick, conservation subdivision. So that's not going to be real quick, but that's there are so many different pieces relative to that conservation subdivision. I feel like we're getting closer, right? With we had our meeting last week with Barb Johnson. I know that there's some changes that people had suggested. I know there's another team coming up. And then we have another natural resource inventory training. Sarah, is that tomorrow? I think.
It's tomorrow, yes.
At noon.
And it's going to
Noon.
be recorded, so hopefully people can join for the live, but we've made sure to let everybody know this will be recorded because it's going to be training that we want as many of our boards and committees to attend, especially those that comment on projects.
What I see happening right now in my general conversations with elected officials and with staff and also with developers and also with community stakeholders and members of our various boards, there's a lot of discussion relative to conservation subdivision, steep slopes, ridgeline, view shed, and what's the other one? We haven't even done shoreline yet, but all of those, and then just generally natural resources, right? So in natural resource protection. So there's a lot of interaction conversations that are taking place relative to all of them. Conservation subdivision, though, going back to the basics on conservation subdivision, that basically for many, many, many years has been used by developers in the town of Canandaigua to propose essentially almost anything they want and not really have to take into account, to the extent that we're talking about, protection of the natural resources. So that, I believe, sounds like that's moving forward. Steep slopes is already in place, but then we're going to get into a conversation that is what, at least in Joyce, I go back to you on this because you were involved in so much of this ridgeline and view shed. There's some components in the conservation subdivision stuff that we're talking about, but I know not to the previous level of detail that you and your team worked on.
Yep, it's true. Yeah, there's there's the aesthetic value regarding development on ridge lines and then again on view sheds, but there's also the engineered part of the code, of the ridgeline code and the view shed code. So, the conservation subdivision design does not carry the total of what's in those ridge lines, but it's not a code yet. It's not a law. So how can we access that information until the town board acts on the ridgeline and the view shed code? I don't know. You're talking about have some accessibility in the conservation subdivision design update, right?
Yeah,
The only thing we have ridgeline guidelines now, which is code. We have shoreline guidelines, which are in code. So those you can apply to the conservation subdivision new code, but the rest of the engineering part of it is not. It's just in draft form.
Sarah, do we have timing on that from Barb Johnson to go to the ordinance committee?
No.
And then, Gary, do you have any idea? I mean, the ordinance committee, have you had it? I think we had some members of the ordinance committee on that. And I know, Tom, you've been involved in that too, but I have no idea how long the ordinance committee is going to need to digest that, to be honest. Do you?
I don't have any idea either.
Yeah.
In the engineering part of the codes is, it's a vital part, obviously. And, that engineered draft that we did is now, it's 3 or 4 years old. So, there's definitely going to have to be probably some kind of an update or something like that. It's probably inevitable because we know more about protecting natural resources and how that works in engineered projects. So I can imagine it's going to be a little while, the review.
So that may be, I mean, we've already said July, August for form-based code and signage. I mean, conservation subdivision, maybe that's hopefully by the end of the year. But I mean, we'll see, I guess. It sounds like that's going to be a while.
I think end of the year is probably realistic. It's not an easy nut to crack.
CIC, as usual, has ambitious goals and tremendous passion. That's one of the things I love about you guys. And it's, boy, you guys definitely create work for us sometimes. But in a good way, in a good way. I mean that in a good way. And it keeps things moving forward. You guys are the engine driving everything. And I'm always concerned without that, without these types of meetings where we're able to discuss these, and that I'm not so sure that some of this stuff would happen. I don't think it would. So kudos to all of you. So.
This is why we have elected officials, Doug. They get paid the big bucks to do this.
Harry, I'm going to defer to you on that one. All right. Very good. Any other?
I'm not going to touch it.
You're not going to touch that one? Yeah. Well, I mean, and Terry uses this example a lot, including from a meeting yesterday. I know he said government moves at a glacial speed. So unfortunately, by the time we have public hearings and then all the back and forth and everybody gets their input, and a lot of times, unfortunately, revisions come at the 11th hour that slows things down a little bit. But you know, at least we're moving forward, even if it is glacial speed. So all right. Does anybody have any final comments?
Our next meeting is scheduled for May 18th. It might be good to try and plan what we would need to discuss, because today we kind of covered the whole everything, like what we want to discuss this year, but for planning purposes.
You know, maybe if I could make a suggestion. I mean, I heard the incredible passion that you guys have for affordable housing, and that'll be the day after the town board meeting. Maybe you dedicate that meeting to affordable housing. You can talk about kind of where you go from there. You'll get some direction from the town board, hopefully at that May 17th meeting. And then you can at least come up with a game plan on your next steps for that.
Sounds good.
Good.
Sounds good to me too.
Sarah, we don't have the next meeting for affordable housing yet, right? Didn't you send out a something or other, a survey? Or?
Because there was some internal discussion about a chair, and whoever that might be, they would send the doodle. So I haven't yet, but if we don't have a chair, I guess I'll have to send one eventually.
Well, so one of the challenges with that, and again, maybe the CIC can talk about that more a little bit, or maybe we just need to send out a doodle. But you know, there were quite a significant number of the project team members that were saying they wanted the meeting at night, in the evening, and different days that would work and different days that weren't going to work. That's why I kind of like just put a pin in that whole discussion and said we'll send a doodle poll out, because I'm not sure where that's going to end up. So.
Yeah.
All right. So I will send out, just so you can see it, an updated version of the comp plan. Again, no huge changes, with, you know, hopefully by the end of the week. I mean, I have made changes, but you know, I'm awaiting more comments and stuff. So I don't think there's a point in sending you one today, because I know it's going to change tomorrow and the next day. So hopefully the end of the week, or when we make the agenda next week. So either way, you'll have the newer final, hopefully final draft within a week.
Yeah.
The NRI meeting is tomorrow at noon.
Noon, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I sent a reminder to, what I think my list included was every board, committee, project team member, and many staff and elected officials. And I can't remember if I sent that yesterday or last week, but it was just recently as a reminder. So yeah, noon tomorrow, or YouTube by Friday. And for any board members like planning board, etc., who have annual training hour requirements, this will count towards that for them, whether they come to the live webinar or watch the recording.
How many training units are you giving? 2?
I don't know. Don't we usually do it based on hours?
Yeah, but you know, hour and a half, 2, something.
I don't know. I don't get to decide that. Whatever seems reasonable.
Don't forget, if we can invite the CIC, right? 11 o'clock this morning.
I mean, yeah,
Yes.
the CDC said if you're vaccinated, you can be outside with groups.
So
But
you want
yeah,
to tell them what's going on?
the inclusive playground meeting that we've been working on for a couple, or not, sorry, not meeting, the inclusive playground at across the street from Outhouse Park that we've been working on for a couple of years is doing their official ceremonial groundbreaking at 11 a.m. today on site. Parking will still be at the existing Outhouse Park. You'll have to walk over to the site. We did not publicize it just because of COVID. We didn't think it was appropriate to invite hundreds of people, but the team that's been working on this, the nonprofit group, some folks from Buffalo, and I believe some town board members will be there. So yeah, I think it's okay to invite you guys as well.
So it'll be in the mud, right?
I talked to Jim Fletcher yesterday. He said there's some sand because I wanted to know in my reminder if I needed to tell people to plan for mud. And he did not say that it was muddy, but with the rain, I'm sure it won't be pristine and neat and tidy either.
It'll be muddy. It'll be muddy.
Thanks,
But
Doug.
the sun is trying to make an appearance, so.
Yeah,
just
I've been checking the weather. It's not supposed to be raining at 11. So hopefully that is still true. But yeah, so it's exciting. I mean, the work has already begun. Highway's been working on the site already. And there's lots of background work, obviously, but this is like the official, we get to say we've started moment. So anyway, that's good stuff.
Okay.
I think we're good.
We're good.
Mhm.
We're good.
Yeah.
I think Greg had something else there. Greg, did you have something else? No, you're just saying goodbye.
Oh.
I can't hear you, but goodbye. So.
Bye, Greg.
Okay,
Yes,
bye.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see some of you
everybody.
later
Bye.
and see the rest of you.
Have a
Okay,
good
thank
day.
you. Yeah,
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Thanks.